They laugh, they judge, they whisper your name in rooms you've never entered. And for a while, you believe them. You shrink yourself to fit their comfort. You stay quiet to avoid their criticism. And you measure your worth by the noise around you. But one day, something changes. You realize that people who constantly define your value are often trying to hide their own emptiness. The moment you stop begging for approval and start respecting yourself, their words lose power. The louder your self-respect becomes, the smaller their opinions sound. And that is the moment you stop living for the crowd and start becoming someone the crowd can no longer control. From the moment you open your eyes, someone is already deciding who you should be. Your family has expectations. Your friends have opinions. Strangers have judgments. Society has rules that keep changing, depending on who is watching. You spend years trying to satisfy people who never planned to be satisfied. Every compliment becomes a reward. Every criticism feels like punishment. Without realizing it, your happiness is no longer yours. It belongs to the audience. Look carefully at how people behave. They cheer for confidence until it becomes greater than theirs. They admire ambition until it threatens their comfort. They encourage dreams until those dreams become real. Then suddenly, the applause disappears, replaced by questions, gossip, and silent resentment. The same mouths that once praised, you begin searching for flaws, because watching someone grow reminds them of everything they refuse to become. So you start editing yourself. You choose words that won't offend anyone. You hide your opinions to avoid arguments. You laugh at jokes you don't find funny. You apologize for taking space. You say yes when every part of you wants to say no. Little by little, you erase pieces of yourself, believing acceptance is worth the price. But every piece you sacrifice leaves an empty place inside, and no amount of approval can fill it. The strange part is that approval never lasts. Today's hero becomes tomorrow's villain with one mistake, one decision, one rumor, one opinion. The crowd changes sides faster than the wind changes direction. If your confidence depends on applause, then silence will destroy you. If your identity depends on other people's approval, then every new opinion becomes another chain around your neck. People don't always judge because you're wrong. Sometimes they judge because you're different. Sometimes they judge because you're brave enough to do what they were too afraid to try. Sometimes they judge because your confidence exposes their insecurity. And sometimes they judge simply because judging others is easier than fixing themselves. Think about how much energy disappears chasing acceptance. Hours spent wondering what someone meant by a message. Days replaying conversations in your head. Weeks trying to impress people who barely think about you after they leave the room. You're fighting battles inside your mind, while the people you're trying to impress have already moved on with their lives. The truth is uncomfortable. Most people are too busy worrying about how they're being judged, to spend much time thinking about you. Yet you hand them control over your emotions, as if they own the keys to your life. Imagine living every day, waiting for permission to feel valuable, waiting for someone else to tell you that you're enough, waiting for strangers to approve your choices before you believe in yourself. That isn't confidence. That's emotional dependence wearing a polite mask. People will always have opinions because opinions are cheap. They cost nothing to create and nothing to throw away. Respect, however, is different. It isn't earned by pleasing everyone. It's earned by standing firm, even when people misunderstand you. The moment you stop chasing approval, something unusual happens. You become harder to manipulate. People can no longer control you with praise because you don't depend on it. They can no longer break you with criticism because you no longer measure yourself through their eyes. Their compliments become pleasant instead of necessary. Their insults become noise instead of truth. Many people spend their entire lives performing for an invisible audience. Every decision is made to impress someone. Every achievement is posted for validation. Every failure is hidden out of fear. They build an image instead of building a character. Images fade. Character remains. There will always be someone who thinks you're too quiet, too loud, too ambitious, too emotional, too different, too ordinary, too confident, or not confident enough. Change for one person, and another will immediately demand something else. Approval has no finish line because the crowd keeps moving it. The only opinion that follows you every single day is your own. When you wake up, it's there. When you fail, it's there. When you succeed, it's there. When everyone leaves, it's still there. That voice becomes your prison or your freedom, depending on whose approval you've trained it to seek. Respect is not something you demand from the world. It is something you decide for yourself long before anyone else notices it. Most people wait for permission to value themselves. They wait for success, money, beauty, status, or applause before believing they deserve respect. Until then, they treat themselves like they are negotiable. They lower their standards, ignore their instincts, and tolerate things that slowly destroy who they are. The world learns how to treat you by watching how you treat yourself. If you constantly apologize for existing, people will assume your presence needs justification. If you always sacrifice your peace to keep everyone comfortable, they will expect you to continue doing it. If you allow disrespect once, many will test whether they can do it again. Not because they are powerful, but because you quietly taught them where your boundaries end. Self-respect begins with the smallest decisions. It begins when you stop explaining every choice to people who already decided not to understand you. It begins when you stop chasing people who enjoy being chased. It begins when you stop accepting half-hearted effort while giving your whole heart in return. These moments seem insignificant, but they shape the person staring back at you in the mirror. People often confuse kindness with weakness because they have never learned the difference. Kindness is a choice. Weakness is surrender. You can be compassionate without allowing people to walk over you. You can forgive someone without inviting them back into your life. You can stay calm without becoming silent in the face of disrespect. Self-respect is knowing where kindness ends and self-betrayal begins. Many people fear losing others. Very few fear losing themselves. That is why they remain in friendships that drain them, relationships that humiliate them, workplaces that exploit them, and environments that constantly remind them they are never enough. They convince themselves that surviving disrespect is better than standing alone. They don't notice that loneliness is not the greatest danger. Losing your identity is. Every time you ignore your values just to be accepted, a part of your confidence disappears. Every time you silence your truth to avoid rejection, your self-respect pays the price. You may gain temporary approval, but you lose permanent trust in yourself. Eventually, you begin doubting your own instincts because you've spent so much time listening to everyone else's voice. Look at the people who command genuine respect. It is rarely because they are the loudest. It is because they know what they will never compromise. They don't need to announce their standards. Their actions reveal them. They walk away from manipulation without making a scene. They refuse disrespect without begging for understanding. Their silence carries more weight than another person's endless explanations because their confidence is rooted in principles, not popularity. Some people will call you arrogant the moment you stop accepting less than you deserve. Others will accuse you of changing because you no longer tolerate behavior that once hurt you. They became comfortable with the version of you that accepted everything. The stronger version makes them uncomfortable because it reminds them they can no longer control you. Do not mistake guilt for growth. Setting boundaries often feels uncomfortable because you are breaking habits that benefited everyone except you. The people who truly value you will adjust. The people who only valued your obedience will complain. Their reaction tells you more about their intentions than your decision ever could. Self-respect also means keeping promises to yourself. If you constantly abandon your own goals, your own discipline, and your own principles, why would your mind trust you? Confidence is built every time you prove to yourself that your word matters. Every promise kept becomes evidence that you are reliable. Every excuse accepted weakens the foundation of your character. There will always be pressure to become someone easier to control, someone quieter, someone more agreeable, someone willing to shrink so others can feel bigger. The world rewards conformity because predictable people are easier to influence. A person who respects themselves becomes difficult to manipulate. They no longer trade their peace for temporary approval. They no longer measure their worth through another person's mood. They no longer beg to remain where they are, merely tolerated. The strongest form of confidence is not believing you're better than everyone else. It is refusing to believe you're less than anyone else. It is standing in a room without needing to prove your value because you already know it. It is protecting your time, your energy, your principles, and your peace with the same determination that others protect their pride. It is recognizing that once your self-respect becomes non-negotiable, the price of access to your life changes, and not everyone is willing to pay it. Criticism is one of the oldest weapons in the world. It doesn't require strength, intelligence, or courage. Anyone can point a finger. Anyone can laugh. Anyone can sit comfortably on the sidelines and explain how someone else should live. The easiest job belongs to the observer because they never carry the weight of action. They only carry opinions. The moment you decide to do something different, the noise begins. People who never believed in themselves suddenly become experts on your future. People who never took risks become advisors. People who quit on their own dreams become judges of yours. It has nothing to do with your ability. It has everything to do with what your courage reminds them about themselves. Most criticism is not a reflection of your reality. It is a reflection of someone else's perspective. A person who is insecure sees confidence as arrogance. A lazy person sees discipline as obsession. A negative person sees ambition as selfishness. A fearful person sees courage as recklessness. Everyone filters your actions through the condition of their own mind, yet you often mistake their interpretation for absolute truth. That is where the trap begins. You start defending yourself. You explain every decision. You justify every step. You waste precious time trying to convince people who decided their opinion before you even spoke. No explanation can satisfy someone who enjoys misunderstanding you. Some people don't want clarity. They want control. As long as you keep defending yourself, they remain in charge of your emotions. They throw another opinion, and you rush to prove them wrong. They question your worth, and you begin presenting evidence. They criticize your choices, and suddenly, your life becomes a courtroom where you're constantly on trial. The smartest move is realizing you were never required to attend the trial. Silence frustrates people who expect emotional reactions. When someone cannot control your emotions, they lose one of their greatest sources of power. That is why some individuals become even louder when you stop responding. They mistake your calmness for weakness because they cannot imagine strength without anger. There is a strange addiction many people have. They need to be talked about, even if the conversation is negative. They would rather receive criticism than be ignored, because attention feels like significance. Do not become addicted to defending your image. An image exists inside other people's minds. You cannot control it. One person will think you're brilliant. Another will think you're foolish. One will admire your confidence. Another will call it pride. Both are looking at the same person, but seeing completely different stories because they are looking through different minds. Trying to manage every opinion is like trying to stop every wave from reaching the shore. Impossible. The more energy you spend fighting every opinion, the less energy remains for building your life. Notice how successful people are always criticized. Not because success is wrong, because visibility attracts judgment. The person doing nothing escapes attention. The person creating something meaningful becomes a target. Criticism is often proof that your existence has become noticeable. People rarely throw stones at empty trees. The greatest mistake is believing that criticism automatically means you're failing. Sometimes it means you're growing beyond environments that once defined you. Growth changes relationships. It changes expectations. It changes comfort zones. Not everyone celebrates the version of you that no longer depends on them. Some people only liked you when you were uncertain, when you needed validation, when you constantly asked for advice. Confidence threatens those who built their importance around your insecurity. That is why ignoring criticism is not about pretending words don't exist. It is about deciding which voices deserve space inside your mind. Not every opinion earns the right to influence your direction. If someone has never built the life you're trying to create, why should their doubt become your limit? If someone only appears to criticize but never to support, why should their judgment carry more weight than your own experience? Your mind becomes whatever you repeatedly feed it. Listen to enough negativity, and eventually you'll begin criticizing yourself before anyone else has the chance. That inner critic becomes louder than every stranger combined. The real battle is never against the people talking. It is against the part of you that starts believing them. The strongest people are not those who never hear criticism. They are the ones who hear it without surrendering their identity. They separate useful advice from meaningless noise. They accept correction without accepting humiliation. They improve without becoming controlled. Every minute spent arguing with people determined to misunderstand you is a minute stolen from your own progress. While you're busy defending your path, someone else is quietly walking theirs. The world remembers those who built something despite criticism, not those who spent their lives answering every accusation. Some voices deserve your attention because they challenge you to become better. Others only exist to distract you from becoming anything at all. Wisdom is learning the difference before their noise becomes your reality. The word no terrifies more people than failure ever could. Not because it is difficult to say, but because it forces others to see that they no longer have unlimited access to you. The moment you stop saying yes to everything, people begin asking questions. They wonder why you've changed. They accuse you of becoming cold. They complain that you are different. What they rarely admit is that they simply miss the version of you that was easier to use. Boundaries are invisible until someone tries to cross them. That is, when you discover who truly respects you and who only respected the convenience you provided. A person who values you will understand your limits. A person who only values what they can get from you will treat every boundary like a personal attack. Many people spend years trying to avoid disappointing others. In the process, they disappoint themselves every single day. They agree to things they don't believe in. They give away time they cannot replace. They carry responsibility, arundelis, that were never theirs. They remain silent when they should speak. Then they wonder why exhaustion follows them everywhere. Every unnecessary yes is often a hidden no to your own peace. The world has a strange habit of rewarding people who never complain while quietly taking advantage of them. The more available you become, the more people expect your availability. The more you sacrifice without limits, the more your sacrifice becomes normal instead of appreciated. What was once considered generosity slowly becomes an expectation. People adjust quickly to comfort. Very few stop to ask what it costs you. There is a dangerous belief that protecting yourself is selfish. It isn't. Ignoring your own limits until resentment grows inside you helps no one. You cannot keep pouring from an empty cup while pretending everything is fine. Eventually, frustration replaces kindness. Bitterness replaces patience. Silence replaces honesty. Not because you became a bad person, but because you abandoned yourself for too long. Some people only feel powerful when they can control someone else's choices. They become uncomfortable when you stop asking for permission. They become irritated when you refuse to explain every decision. They become offended when your priorities no longer revolve around their expectations. That discomfort belongs to them, not to you. You are not responsible for making manipulation feel comfortable. Watch how people react the first time you calmly refuse something. Some will respect it immediately. Others will pressure you. They will remind you of everything you've done together. They will make you feel guilty. They will question your loyalty. Not because your boundary is unreasonable, but because it interrupted a pattern that benefited them. Guilt is one of the oldest tools of control. If someone cannot force your actions, they often try to control your emotions instead. They want you to feel guilty enough to abandon your own standards. The moment guilt becomes stronger than self-respect, your boundaries begin collapsing one by one. Real confidence is not always loud. Sometimes confidence is quietly leaving a conversation that no longer deserves your attention. Sometimes confidence is refusing to answer messages immediately because your peace matters too. Sometimes confidence is walking away without delivering a dramatic speech. Not every exit requires an announcement. Some doors close most powerfully without a sound. People often mistake endless patience for unlimited tolerance. Those are not the same. Patience gives others room to grow. Unlimited tolerance teaches others that your limits do not exist. Every relationship becomes healthier when both people understand where respect begins and where disrespect ends. Without boundaries, love becomes control, friendship becomes obligation, work becomes exploitation, kindness becomes permission for others to take more than they deserve. The strongest people are rarely the ones who dominate every room. They are the ones who know exactly what they will never allow into their lives. Their standards protect them long before problems appear. They don't wait until they are completely broken before deciding enough is enough. They recognize small signs of disrespect before those signs become permanent habits. You will lose people when you build stronger boundaries. Some will leave because they can no longer manipulate you. Some will disappear because they only valued your usefulness. Some relationships survive only because one person keeps sacrificing themselves. The moment that sacrifice ends, the relationship reveals what it truly was. Do not fear those losses. Fear becoming someone who cannot recognize themselves because they spent years living according to everyone else's expectations. Every boundary you protect sends a message to your own mind. It says your time has value, your energy has value, your peace has value, your dignity has value. Every time you honor those boundaries, your confidence grows a little stronger because you prove to yourself that your well-being is not something to negotiate. The people who truly belong in your life will never require you to abandon your self-respect just to keep them comfortable. The ones who demand unlimited access, endless explanations, constant sacrifice, and unquestioning obedience are not asking for love or loyalty. They are asking for ownership, and ownership has no place in the life of someone who has finally learned that protecting their peace is not an act of guilt, but an act of strength. Emotions are powerful servants, but they become dangerous masters. Most people never realize how easily their feelings can be controlled by someone else. One insult ruins their entire day. One rude comment steals their confidence. One person's opinion changes their mood, their decisions, and sometimes even their future. They believe they are living freely, yet every emotional reaction is being pulled by invisible strings held in someone else's hands. The greatest form of control is not over other people. It is over yourself. Anyone can lose their temper. Anyone can react without thinking. Anyone can let anger, fear, or frustration take over for a few seconds. Very few people can remain calm while chaos surrounds them. That kind of silence unsettles people because they expect you to explode. Some individuals spend their lives searching for your emotional weak points. They know exactly which words to use, exactly which memories to bring up, exactly which insecurities to touch. Not because they seek understanding, but because emotional reactions give them satisfaction. The louder you react, the more powerful they feel. Your anger becomes proof that they successfully entered your mind. Never hand someone the privilege of controlling your peace. A person who can control your emotions can often control your choices. When anger speaks first, wisdom usually leaves the room. How many opportunities have disappeared because someone reacted instead of thinking? How many relationships ended over a few uncontrolled moments? How many regrets were created by words that felt satisfying for 5 seconds, but painful for 5 years? People often confuse emotional control with emotional suppression. They are completely different. Suppressing emotions means pretending they don't exist. Controlling emotions means recognizing them without allowing them to take control of your behavior. You can feel anger without becoming violent. You can feel sadness without surrendering your hope. You can feel fear without abandoning your purpose. Strength is not the absence of emotion. Strength is refusing to become its prisoner. Observe the people who constantly seek drama. Their lives revolve around conflict. Because conflict keeps them feeling important, peace feels unfamiliar to them. Calmness feels boring. They create arguments where none exist. They spread rumors because silence makes them uncomfortable. When you refuse to participate, they become frustrated because your calmness removes the fuel their chaos depends upon. Nothing confuses an angry person more than someone who refuses to become equally angry. They expect resistance. They prepare for arguments. They rehearse their next attack. Then they meet silence. Not fearful silence, confident silence. That silence forces them to confront themselves, instead of distracting themselves with your reaction. Every emotional outburst has a price. Sometimes the price is your reputation. Sometimes it is your credibility. Sometimes it is an opportunity that never returns. People remember how you behave under pressure far more than how you behave when everything is easy. Anyone can smile during success. Character appears during conflict. Many people believe revenge is the highest form of strength. It isn't. Revenge keeps you emotionally connected to the person who hurt you. Your thoughts remain trapped in the past. Your peace depends on making someone else suffer. Real power is reaching a point where the desire for revenge disappears because your future has become more valuable than your past. Emotional discipline is built through small moments. The moment you choose not to answer an unnecessary argument. The moment you walk away instead of proving a point. The moment you refuse to let a stranger's opinion define your entire day. These victories are invisible to the world, but they slowly transform the person within. People often admire those who dominate others. Few admire those who dominate themselves, because that battle happens where no audience exists. There are no trophies for resisting temptation, no applause for remaining patient, no headlines for controlling your ego. Yet these unseen victories create an unshakable foundation that external praise never can. The world will continue testing your patience. Someone will misunderstand you. Someone will insult you. Someone will attempt to provoke you simply because they enjoy watching people lose control. You cannot stop these moments from arriving. You can decide what happens next. Your reaction becomes your responsibility. Every time you remain composed, while others expect chaos, you become harder to manipulate. Every time you refuse to let temporary emotions make permanent decisions, your judgment becomes sharper. Every time you protect your inner peace instead of feeding unnecessary conflict, your confidence grows stronger. The loudest person in the room often appears powerful for a moment, but the one who remains steady when everyone else is losing control carries a different kind of strength. It cannot be borrowed, it cannot be faked, and it cannot be taken away by criticism, pressure, or fear, because it comes from mastering the only battlefield that truly belongs to you, your own mind. There comes a moment when something inside you changes forever, not because the world suddenly becomes kinder, but because you finally stop giving it permission to decide your worth. The opinions that once kept you awake at night begin sounding like distant echoes. The people who once had the power to shake your confidence become ordinary faces passing through your life. Nothing outside has changed. The transformation happened where no one could see it. Most people spend their lives trying to become accepted. Very few spend their lives becoming untouchable. Acceptance depends on others. Strength depends on you. That is the difference. An untouchable person is not someone who cannot be criticized. It is someone who cannot be controlled by criticism. The insults still exist. The judgments still exist. The gossip still exists. But none of them find a place to live inside the mind anymore. Words only become weapons when you agree to carry them. Notice how easily people manipulate those who constantly seek validation. Praise becomes bait. Attention becomes currency. Rejection becomes punishment. The moment your happiness depends on another person's approval, your freedom quietly disappears. You begin negotiating your personality. You change your voice. You hide your opinions. You become whoever the room expects instead of whoever you truly are. That is not adaptation. That is surrender, disguised as politeness. Freedom begins the day you stop asking strangers to confirm what you already know about yourself. Not everyone deserves access to your thoughts. Not every opinion deserves your attention. Not every insult deserves your response. Some battles become victories the moment you refuse to fight them. There will always be people who misunderstand you. Some will intentionally twist your words. Some will create stories because reality isn't interesting enough. Some will dislike you without knowing anything about you. Do not waste your life correcting every false impression. The people determined to misunderstand you will simply invent another reason tomorrow. Your energy is too valuable to spend as chasing people committed to remaining blind. Many fear being alone. The stronger fear should be becoming someone you no longer recognize just to avoid loneliness. Crowds often reward conformity. They applaud those who repeat familiar ideas. They become uncomfortable around individuals who refuse to wear masks. Authenticity has always been expensive because it demands the courage to stand without guarantees of acceptance. The strongest identity is built in private. It grows every time you choose discipline over excuses. Every time you protect your standards. Every time you refuse to betray your values for temporary comfort. These moments rarely receive applause, yet they slowly create a confidence that no audience can either give or take away. Some people believe becoming untouchable means becoming cold. It doesn't. You can still care deeply. You can still love. You can still help others. The difference is that your kindness is no longer desperate. You give because you choose to, not because you're afraid. People will leave if you don't. You forgive because you value your peace, not because you forgot what happened. You walk away when respect disappears because your dignity matters more than your attachment. People who cannot manipulate you often call you difficult. People who cannot guilt you call you selfish. People who cannot control your emotions call you arrogant. Those labels lose their power once you realize they are often reactions to the boundaries you refuse to remove. Every insult reveals more about the speaker than the target. Every attempt to provoke you becomes another opportunity to prove your discipline. Every challenge becomes another reminder that your peace belongs to you. Imagine reaching a point where praise no longer inflates your ego and criticism no longer weakens your confidence, where success doesn't make you arrogant, failure doesn't make you worthless, rejection doesn't make you desperate, approval doesn't make you dependent. That balance cannot be purchased. It cannot be borrowed from motivational speeches. It is built one decision at a time until your identity becomes stronger than every opinion surrounding it. Eventually, people stop trying to control those who no longer react. Manipulators search for easier targets. Critics grow tired of speaking into silence. Those who once doubted you begin wondering why their words no longer have the same effect. Not because you became louder, because you became stronger where it mattered most. The greatest victory is never proving your value to the world. It is reaching the point where the world no longer has the authority to decide it, where your confidence is rooted so deeply in your own character that praise cannot intoxicate you, rejection cannot break you, fear cannot silence you. and the endless opinions of people who never lived your life become nothing more than passing noise against a mind that has finally learned the unshakable power of respecting itself.